Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 61. The doors have been bricked up. I felt so dizzy that I fell over. I received a phone call from England informing me that my grandfather had fallen over. Nothing life-threatening, just a simple tumble in the garden. The police have hit a brick wall. The crash had a period of exuberance followed by an alarmingly rapid tumble. Prices continue to tumble. I told her to come back to my place with all her gear. He made a pass at me. He expanded his clothing line from basketball gear to lifestyle wear. They're going co-ed in June. The harpy woman shook her wings and let out a blood-curdling cry from the depths of her throat. The curd, which is half-curdled, has been considered as a totally unwholesome food item. It is you and the like of you that deprave and demoralize youth and prepare criminals for the gallows. Don't badger people with inane questions. I have never seen the strict professor act inane. The old couple likes to act inane by dancing around in front of the children. We tend to do inane things like dressing up as cartoon characters. Why is a rattle good for a baby? She came slinking wearing slick silk. A slick of lip gloss. His damp hair was slicked back. She woke to find her body slicked with sweat. Authorities decided to demolish the building because it was proving too costly to maintain. Dad groused about getting slicked up. In the second lap, some cyclists detached themselves from the main field. Every pound you can knock off is money in your pocket. Knock off the arguing with your sister. That isn't a real watch, it's just a cheap knockoff. They usually knock off at 5 p.m. 5. I could knock the article off in half an hour. When the bill came, they knocked off £600 because of a little scratch. He got done for knocking off cars. An unidentified robber knocked off the bank. They were knocking off fake watches for years before others got into that game. He's on a mission to knock off a drug baron. There was plenty of time for them to knock off the runs. I've spent the whole day running round after the kids. We slanted across to the far bank and ran before the wind. The rumor ran through the pack of photographers. Cameras triggered by cars running red lights at intersections. A small river runs into the sea at one side of the castle. She ran a bath and lowered herself into the water. She was weeping and her nose was running. It was so hot that the butter ran. The red dye ran when the socks were washed. Cobbled streets run down to a tiny harbor. Inflation is running at 10%. Buses run into town every half hour. I'll run you home. Andrea runs her own catering business. We decided to run a series of seminars. He could no longer afford to run a car. The car runs on unleaded fuel. The course ran for 2 days. The tabloid press ran the story that it's absolutely imperative to meet requirements at university. They may have serious symptoms of pain, dizziness, and nausea. The fox came slinking through the bracken. Is a widow's peak hereditary? Phobic conditions are frequently manifested by a reluctance to interact, usually from childhood. Essex trounced Cambridge 5-1 in the final. After much deliberation we arrived at a compromise. He had been striding back and forth, rubbing his chin in deliberation at an agonizingly slow pace. He replaced the glass on the table with deliberation. I flushed the pills down the lavatory. A boulder that was slung from a catapult. Liposuction is a surgical procedure that uses a suction technique to remove fat. Self-mutilation is a behavior so shocking and cloaked in denial. Liposuction requires going under anesthesia for the procedure. Materials that conduct electricity without resistance continue to surprise physicists. The roof rattled with little gusts of wind. My heart was simultaneously full of exquisite joy and unbearable sadness. After a spate of attacks in this year, bookmakers have become successful in fending off attacks. That night saw one of the most ferocious spates of rioting in living memory. Mosquito repellent. She turned quickly, rattled by his presence. The rattle of teacups on the tray. The festivities climax tomorrow in a royal procession. The day climaxed with a gala concert. 3 goals in the last 2 minutes climaxed a thrilling game. He had been on a drip for several days. The sky was blue with a few wispy clouds. I took off lickety-split across the lawn. Smoking cessation clinics. I am the Grand Master. Our tightly coiled rules. The pomp and pageantry seemed to affect our lads quite a bit. They appeared sluggish and nervous at the beginning of the game. You are a good kid. You always have been. Cancer rotted his guts. You're old enough to fend for yourself. He is just as his father was. The gains of feudalism didn't wither away when the serf was emancipated. As the poet tells us in the prologue and again in the epilogue. Do you want coffee? I am good, no. Spike the liquid with lime or lemon juice. The epilogue repeats the prologue. People are born into this world, they quarrel, they love, they die. There lies the higher meaning of life. Oil prices would spike and fall again. Civil unrest in a few isolated villages became the prologue to widespread rebellion. The duel is officially tied. The first tied match in the league. He bent to tie his shoelace. Tie a knot in one end of the cotton. With all our food and personal gear safely stowed atop our jeep. I'm always having to straighten out the wires connected to my computer. Pack behavior. I wanna raise the stakes. A spate of related movements tried to emulate his success. Cut a deal with them, make an agreement. The fiduciary relationship which subsists between solicitor and client. The solicitors have claimed a lien on their file until their fees, which are substantial, are paid. The return to peace saw a swift resumption of car production. You are a first-class squealer. I propose a toast. Males are emancipated from mate guarding and parental duties during the incubation period. We use it to comfort ourselves, quell anxiety and fear, and numb those feelings of self-doubt. Damsel in distress, a young woman in trouble. It is the least I can do. He caught wind of the gossip. A masked raider wielding a handgun. A crusade against crime. I'm too hard up to buy fancy clothes. Her parents were very hard up. I tried to stifle the thoughts, to quell the overwhelming feeling of being trapped in circumstances. The military government pledged to quell rebellion and unify the country by force. I was always hard up as a student. Before the match riot, police with batons waded in to quell troublemakers. The animals attain sexual maturity in 2 to 3 years. Homer is known as the blind bard. The ring made me gag, it's so beautiful. A congenial atmosphere. Some apes started walking on hind legs. Normally, red deer spend November through September in segregated herds. The mature males in one herd, the hinds, and youngsters in another. I don't like to be beholden to anybody. Spiral the bandage round the limb. The midwife told us that the head is engaged but the baby is posterior. That snack took the edge off our hunger. The tablets will take the edge off the pain. A glass of milk will take the edge off your hunger. Her kind manner took the edge off her refusal. Thanks for your gallant gesture. This picture records for posterity a scene of village life that has been lost forever. Recon mission means reconnaissance errand. They'd scoped out their market. Those results were not replicated in any of several subsequent studies. Go do some recon. I highly recommend the rack of lamb if it is on the menu. A tie pin is an ornamental pin for holding a tie in place. He was feeling smug after his win. He leaned back, as smug as a raffle winner. He folded his hands over his chest and gave her a smug smile. Pundits frequently tell us, investments from abroad are key to the uplift of poor nations. The martyrdom of Saint Anthony. Ides of March. A prosperous family who showed no signs of discord. A kink in the road. This has led to discord within the various cultures and ethnicities. To conk means to straighten curly or kinky hair. The river kinks violently in a right angle. All human beings were entitled to be treated equally, regardless of their ethnic or religious origins. Long and kinky hair, having kinks or twists. The cold front turned into a winter storm. The end. Coming next. Session 62.